Very grateful to you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just a few words about the context of the debate and to reflect on some of the points that have been made. It is clearly the case, and we're accused of this as if it's a negative, that the campaign for Brexit, and those of us who supported it, were doing so in a sort of nostalgic spirit, a sort of backward-looking spirit. And there is something in that, because we were about restoring British sovereignty. There was a sense in which something good had been lost and needed to be brought back. And all good revolutions are, in a sense, backward-looking, Madam Deputy Speaker. Bad revolutions are the progressive ones. Good revolutions restore what was lost. And that's what Brexit was about. Nevertheless, despite that point, to which I do concede, it's also the case, and more fundamentally, that the case for Brexit was forward-looking. And it was about actually putting this country in the best possible position to meet the challenges of the 21st century. What the 21st century demands is agility. It demands the independence that sovereignty can allow. Obviously cooperation, obviously working closely in partnership. That Britain has always been an outward-looking country. But the nimbleness and the agility that will be needed in this very highly contested new world that we're in, that was what Brexit was about. And we have already seen in a number of hugely significant occasions and moments since Brexit why our independence was so necessary. We saw it in our COVID response. We've seen it in the context of Ukraine and our defence policy, and we're seeing it now. We've seen it since Brexit in terms of our trade as well. We've seen it indeed in relations with the negotiations with the US compared to the EU in recent months. And on trade, I've made the point in an intervention earlier. This point, the challenge is often made that Brexit has harmed our GDP because of a loss of productivity. The reverse is the case. Trade with the EU has grown since Brexit, and it is not the case that we have suffered detriment because of that. Trade is growing between the UK and the whole world, including with the EU, but it is growing more with the non-EU countries, which makes the point about why it was so necessary to reclaim sovereignty over our trade policy. And I share the concerns raised by colleagues on this side of the House about what is being planned next week in terms of dynamic alignment on trade. And I echo the call to the Minister to absolutely rule out a backdoor alignment arrangement with the EU. We've already seen very worrying hints in that direction, so I look forward to his response. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, the case for Brexit wasn't primarily about trade. It's a very, very important matter, of course, but really fundamentally, let us acknowledge, I think we all do, that really people were voting to take back control of our borders and our laws. And those two vital questions remain contested because this government never believed in Brexit. It didn't understand the call of the people for independence and sovereignty in those two key respects. So on borders, on immigration, I recognise the case for a kind of a youth mobility scheme. In principle, the idea of reciprocal arrangement of young people being able to spend a few months or a year working in another country, obviously I recognise the abstract case for that, and it is a good thing. The Honourable Lady who spoke earlier said in her case it was a nice thing to be able to do. Nevertheless, what we're talking about when we see the value of these sorts of schemes is when there is a reciprocal arrangement, when comparable numbers are coming and going. It's the same that applies to the argument about the Indian trade deal and this reciprocal arrangement on national insurance. The fact is many more people will come to take advantage of these so-called reciprocal arrangements by coming to the UK than going either to India or to the EU. And so it's not the case that we'd have a level playing field. What we would have is another way by which the arrangement that we previously with free movement, now this youth scheme, would mean many, many more people coming into this country, undercutting British workers, and continuing the stagnation of wages that we have suffered from for so many decades. And then on the case of laws and taking back control there, very concerned about the threat of ECJ oversight over these trade arrangements, and potentially as part of the new veterinary agreement or deals on meat and dairy. So I very much hope the Minister can absolutely definitively rule out any extension of ECJ engagement oversight. The fact is, and we see it from the kind of rather mealy-mouthed amendment that they posed to the motion today, Madam Deputy Speaker, Labour don't believe in Brexit. Their heart really, and I really honour the Green Party for the amendment that they have tabled, because there you see the true voice of the pro-European movement. I mean, it's almost a parody, suggesting that free movement and rejoining the EU are what the country needs or would be in the national interest. And indeed, they suggest that it would be a way to counter the hard right. Have they seen what's going on in Europe? Yeah. Where the extension of these principles of ever closer union, of deeper alignment, of a concentration of power at the European level is stoking the far right across Europe.
That's it.
The fundamental point that was why the Conservative Party has always been so successful historically is because we spoke for those people who otherwise would be outraged, and that is why Reform have been doing so well. I don't associate them with the far right, but what they do speak for is those outraged members of the public, many of whom used to vote for us, many of them used to vote for the party opposite, who feel that their parliament has let them down and politics has left them behind. And that is what happens across Europe in a much more dangerous way. So if we are serious about countering the danger of the right, we should be absolutely clear that there will be no suggestion of any return into the EU. And lastly, let me finish on Reform, because they're not here anymore, but there you go. I mean, they've got a rather amusing amendment to the motion, which simply replaces the words Conservative Party with the words Reform. Which, I mean, I honour that. They're kind of piggybacking somewhat on our good work in desperate search to be relevant and to catch up with the Conservative Party, leading the way in this agenda. But it does rather demonstrate, not only, it's a bit of a problem, two things occur to me. One is they can't even write an amendment of their own. They have to rely on us to...
Order. The honourable member might reflect that these were amendments that weren't even selected, so he perhaps shouldn't be debating those. Okay. Danny Kruger.
Well, I was going to end just by saying that the amendment they did table, and I appreciate it wasn't selected, demonstrates we're on the same page with them, and I deeply regret their opposition to what we're trying to do.
That didn't work, so it's a different...
Happy to give way to my... No? Anyway, Madam, happy to give way.
All I was just referring to, they're not here, so I'm going to answer on their respect. They're not on the same page as us because theirs didn't fit and it wasn't a proper amendment.
The right honourable gentleman is a very experienced parliamentarian and should know that he should be addressing actually the chair, not the back of the chamber. Danny Kruger.
All sorts of things are going wrong when we mention Reform, so best leave that topic out. I want to pay tribute to our front bench, who I think have put forward a very important and principled statement of the declaration that our party will stand for. We support the decision of the British people to leave the European Union, repeated in multiple general elections. It's a great shame we cannot hear our party opposite make the same pledge, but I'm happy to give way quickly before I sit down.
Just trying to understand at some point if we will hear anything from the leading opposition party about what they actually think could be improved in the Brexit agreement, which has been so bad for their party. We're talking about getting a better Brexit agreement than the one that they negotiated. Are they saying what they did was perfect, or can it be improved on? And if so, how? Because it was just negative, everything else you're saying.
Be better on Northern Ireland, but let's leave that whole topic to another day. No, the Brexit agreement that we negotiated was absolutely right. The problem is the EU. The problem is the way they, of course, because they are a protectionist bloc. They are a protectionist bloc, and we decided to leave because we believe in sovereignty and we believe in leaving a declining quarter of the world's economy. The problem is the trade barriers that they erected, unnecessarily harmful to both parties. I'll leave it there.
Still a creasy.